This is Sportish.
Do it better.
This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish.
This is Sportish. It's a show ostensibly about sports, started in a global sports shutdown, one that seems like it's going to go on for a little while longer, at least in college athletics. We'll get into that in a second. I'm Geoff Brault alongside Dr. Keith Strudler. He runs the School of Communication and Media at Montclair State University down in New Jersey. Our producer is Mike Wallace. As always, thank you for joining us on For the Fans Network. Hopefully that's where you're catching this episode as it premieres Wednesday at midnight. You can find For the Fans on DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, Zumo, Twitch, FTFnext.com, whole mess of places. Or perhaps if you can't get it there, you're checking us out on any of the podcast channels that are available in the world, Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify. We're on all of them. 5-star review, leave one, some nice comments. We'll take those too. Yeah. Keith, how you doing today?
I'm all right. It's a little stressful. I mean, as most people know, while you would assume this takes all of our time producing this 1 hour show for the Fans, this weekly show that we put a lot of time and effort into, as does Michael Wallace, although he rarely joins us in person, but we assume that he's with us in spirit, our producer. Well, you would assume this is where we put all of our time and energy. This is kind of a side hustle for us until, of course, it's not, until it gets bigger. So we both have stressful jobs. Well, let me take that. I have a stressful job. And so as an academic administrator, as we get ready for what is going to be a very exciting academic year, a lot of stress. So I'm a little tense, but I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. Thank you for asking.
And thank you for not asking how I'm doing, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I'm doing great. In fact, you might say I'm having one of the best days I've had in a long time. Do you know why?
Why is that?
Because I got myself a new mug. And I'm going to drink out of this mug right now.
Does that mug look at all like this one?
What? Why, yes, it does. And if you're not watching us on For the Fans and you're wondering what's happening, this is the first day of the rest of our lives with mugs with our face on it. Yes, we now have an official mug of the pod. Sportish mugs. They're not available anywhere, but there are enough for Keith and I to have them. So this was born out of necessity. There was one episode where I really want to take a sip of water, and I didn't exactly want to uncork an old water bottle and drink it on air. So I was like, man, I need something I can drink water out of. Enter the Sportish mug, featuring our stylish logo on one side, and on the other, the unofficial...
I was going to say, do you mind if I drink left-handed?
Oh, would you like to show people the unofficial tagline of the pod? And again,
you don't have...
for those of you that may not be watching sports, For the Fans,
Sportish.
One more time.
You don't have to love sports to hate Sportish. The official creed of Sportish, the show. And now, Geoff, they're not yet available as far as I know, unless I assume there's probably a knockoff market that's developing as we speak. So you might at this point be looking to buy kind of a non-official version of the official Sportish mug, but I don't believe they're officially available in online or in stores. However, I'm going to throw this out now.
Yeah, they're also not available anywhere. These mugs are extremely limited edition to the two that you see on your screen right now, plus the one that we sent to Mike Wallace for some reason.
Well, that's true. Although I will be clear. I mean, I don't know if Mike knows this. I got 2 mugs.
You did get 2 mugs. That's because I sent you 2 mugs. The smallest quantity of mugs you could order is 4. So we ordered 4 mugs, and I decided you get 2. And I did that for 2 reasons. One, if you didn't get 2, we would never hear the end of it. So sending you the second mug is worth all of our sanity. And two, you have an office that a lot of people trek in and out of, people that are potential podcast listeners. And so I figured you need a mug for the set, and you need a mug to put on display so people go, why is your face on that mug? And it's a customer acquisition program.
Yes. So... But before I bring that into my office, although my office is generally speaking closed to traffic during COVID, but 6 months from now, people are going to love it. That said, I will involve it though in every Zoom I do with students. I will have that mug readily present. I am forcing my wife to sit down and have coffee with me The two of us.
What did Andra say when you showed her the mug? I need to know an outsider's reaction to the fact that a mug with a cartoon rendering of our face on it now exists in the world.
I believe it was something like, what is that? I will say, I showed it to our first ever guest on the podcast, John Franco, and he just wrote, "Those are great."
Wow.
So that's a high endorsement. But I'm wondering if there's got to be a number at which point the price of these mugs comes down, right? There has to be, please tell me that's not in like the thousands, but there has to be a number.
I believe it comes down a little with each individual mug ordered. So like, I think 5 makes it a couple cents cheaper per mug if you got 4 and 6 and so on and so forth.
Should we do kind of one of these what are they, this crowdsourcing situations where if we get to a number, we'll get mugs. Do you think we could, I mean, if we started something like that, do you think that's possible? Because I'm getting my Facebook's blowing up right now because I posted a picture of the mug and it's hot and heavy. I'm guessing each one of those likes is basically a purchase order. Is it possible we could do that?
How many mug sales do you think exist in the world? Keeping in mind that we don't need to buy them because we already have them.
Well, I mean, I've got obviously 2 people in my household that do not have mugs now, right? If it's just one for myself and my wife, there's 2 kids.
You could share mugs. You could share mugs.
We get. I bet you. I mean, I'd buy 10. I'll go on a limb. I'd buy 10 of them myself because one breaks. I'd like to have a replacement.
You'd buy 10 mugs?
I'd buy 10 mugs. I think I'd buy 10 mugs. So how about this? Let's set an ambitious number. We're going to make the order. And this is to the fans. You know, we're going to, first of all, let us know on Twitter @SportishPod. I think all you have to write, I want my mug. I want my mug.
Yeah.
We will, if I think the number we need to get to is 100 too ambitious? Is that too much?
Well, 10 is too ambitious. So 100 is certainly too ambitious.
But I think we need to get it down to like a $10 price point, like a $15, $15 price point.
Now you mean our price, or you mean the price to the people?
Well, I don't. Are we now making? We're
already at a $10 price point. I'll let you know right now. This beautiful, attractive mug, like $10.50.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah,
that's all.
I mean, that's a lot for a ceramic mug, but yes, $10.50 to get 4 custom mugs.
Huh.
Now, I get this is terrible business because now I've let people know the wholesale cost, so that when we sell this mug for $25, $24.99 less shipping and handling, people are gonna be like, wait a minute, how does that work? I can just go and make my own, and you absolutely can. Let me tell you, minutes of design went into this mug. It features our logo, the same logo that you could steal directly off our profile picture on @SportishPod on Twitter, and then I used a stock font to type our unofficial motto on the back of the mug.
So now we're gonna have to get copyright lawyers.
Chose a nice green for the handle because it matches the green in the eye in the logo.
Sure.
So that's the official Sportish mug.
Yeah.
And I think, Keith, you're onto something. If somebody wants one, send in "I want my mug" on Twitter @SportishPod.
And we're gonna get this to a price. So look, everyone's got to eat. I don't know that we need to make a ton of money. How about this? this? We will give a third of all dollars. Here's how we're going to split this up.
Okay.
Here's how we're going to split up. I got it. All right. Are you ready for this? Everything we make off these mugs, we're going to donate to charity. Is that fair?
I'm on board with that. I'm 100% on board with that. 100% on board with that.
We're going to charge somewhere between $15 and $20, somewhere like that. You're going to be given $10 you're going to be given $10 to charity, and you're going to be given whatever the cost is, $10 to get these 2 beautiful mugs on your mug.
I like this. I like this. I think, and honestly, you know what I really like about it? One, we get to do some good in the world. I think we should give it to a COVID charity since we started this podcast during a global sports shutdown. What I like is by tying in the 100% of proceeds to charity, we are, in a sense, guilting people to having a mug with our face on it in their cabinet, which I like.
Yeah. And I also would suggest, if we're going to go the charity route, why don't we have tiers of giving? So for $20, you get the mug and $10. For like $50, you get the mug and you get a shout out on the program.
Sure.
Right?
Well, maybe
for
not on the program,
$100,
but maybe we'll just take like a video on our phones or something and we'll send it to you.
I was going to say for $100, we'll do a message. We'll come into your birthday party or something like that. We'll do a Zoom onto your party.
I think I like it. So I think for $50, you get a mention on the program. We'll be like, I would like to thank all the people that have donated. You just get your name read. Yeah. For $100, we will send you like a minute video clip, a personalized video message.
What's the number that we need for us to like have dinner with you, to actually do a full-on Zoom? And by the way, we're throwing Michael Wallace in on that. Michael Wallace is coming in on that as well.
I mean, I got to tell you, I don't have much better to do, and I like meeting new people. So,
don't sell yourself short. Don't devalue yourself.
I would say
you're worth something.
I would say make us an offer, and we'll entertain it. All proceeds for charity. Are we actually doing this? We're actually going to do this.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. This is all we are going to do on our social platforms. This is it. From here until we grow tired of it, we are, or we realize that no one cares, we are going to spend our time raising money, selling mugs. The problem is we're going to have to keep track of this. Like there's going to be an accounting thing.
I mean, we say that the problem is we have to keep track of it. Mike Wallace is going to have to keep track of it because he didn't show up for class today. And that means that he gets voluntold what he'll be doing.
Yeah. All right. So we're doing this. Yes, we are raising money for COVID charities, and you can, at the very least, you're going to get a mug out of this, which is worth whatever you spend. And perhaps you might get the three of us, two of us and Michael Wallace, showing up at your wife or husband's birthday party or something like that. And we'll basically do a show for you. You give us a topic and we'll just talk.
I'd actually prefer if it was like the weirder the gathering, the better.
Yep.
Like it could be as simple as like, oh, we'll just, we'll have dinner or something. That's not, no. I want it to be really strange. Will you come to my great uncle's like retirement party?
You want it to get weird?
Yes.
Yeah. How about a bris?
Well,
ritual
that certainly would be odd. that would be extremely odd. But I tell you what, though, if you're the kind of person that would make a significant donation to a COVID charity to get Keith Strudler, Geoff Brault, and Mike Wallace, three people who you probably haven't met, to come to a family bris, you are someone I could be friends with. Like if you're that kind of delightful weirdo, you and I are going to get along just fine.
All right. So we've done our housekeeping for the day.
All right. And pretty soon we'll be doing a good deed, and you can get a beautiful Sportish mug. Now, you'll see the mugs throughout the program as we use them to wet our whistles. Speaking of this program, we're doing something a little different this week. No guest for the first time in pod history.
Yeah.
You just got Keith and I, unfiltered for the next however many minutes we decide to go. We're trying something.
We know exactly how long we're going to go. We know exactly.
But I didn't want to do the math from where we are now to how many minutes to the end of the program.
I'm saying, but you said that like this is free form, like it's a TV show. We're pretty tight.
Yes, we will be off the air by 1 a.m. This is not a telethon. We will be off the air at 1 a.m. I wish the same could be said for the robots. We'll get this fight with the For the Fans robots. We will get into that a little bit later in this program. But look, a lot of people I think forget because time is a flat circle now. We've only been doing this show for like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Still very new. Still evolving with every episode.
Yeah.
It's very possible that we're going to like this no guest format. There's certainly no shortage of ego on either side of the table.
No. Well, what I've also noticed is that, while we like having guests, and certainly, we've pulled in some heavyweights to this period. One is I have to remember earlier in the week to go ahead and start asking for guests. Problem is I get to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I'm like, oh, we should start thinking about this. The other problem is, I know like when you get an email that says, hey, would you like to be on Sportish on For the Fans? Sometimes it doesn't quite, I don't think they understand the gravity of what we've offered to them. And sometimes people assume, I don't know if For the Fans automatically or Sportish is a click word that automatically goes to spam, because I've noticed some people don't reply at all. So I think as the momentum of this program builds a little bit, I think, at some point it's not going to be us recruiting guests on the show. It's going to be us. Our job is going to be to push them away a little bit more.
Sure.
That's going to be the issue.
It'll be like a Hodor situation in Game of Thrones. Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I think we're getting closer and closer to that point. Yeah. But clearly, as this week's episode will prove, not quite there yet. All right, we got to talk about college football. And here we say college football. It's really all of fall college sports, but It's college football.
Yeah.
We are recording this podcast the evening of Monday, August 10th. And that's a date that we're probably going to repeat time and time again because that is what we're working with in terms of frame of reference. Here's where we are right now. There will be no FCS playoffs this year after the Pioneer Football League and Big Sky canceled their seasons. What are you holding up?
This is August 10th.
Oh, okay. And also, nice press for whatever Middle Earth Promotions is.
Middle Earth, I guess.
Keith just wrote August 10th on a piece of paper, like people weren't going to believe me.
It looks like I was white balancing the camera.
And you just held that white piece of paper up to the camera. All it said was Aug 10, and then it had like someone's phone number and website on it. Well,
you're welcome.
And keep in mind that a large portion of our listeners or viewers, whatever, are listening in an audio-only medium.
Yeah.
Okay. FCS playoffs are done. Less than 50% of the FCS are still possibly playing this season, which means there can be no playoffs. The NCAA came out and said that would be the case. One FBS conference has canceled, the Mid-American Conference, the MAC. If you look at all the conferences in the FBS, the MAC is probably the bottom, second from the bottom.
What is the Sun Belt? Not the Sun Belt. What's the North Texas? Is that the Sun Belt?
Sun Belt. Yep.
Yeah, that's probably I would assume at this point that's probably the lowest performing.
Yeah, but the MAC is right alongside, and they canceled. And as soon as they canceled, and they did that, I believe, on Saturday, it was shocking to me, at least, how quickly dominoes started falling, how quickly leagues like the Big Ten, how quickly leagues like the Pac-12 started coming around to this idea that they're not so certain that they're going to be able to have college football. In fact, as we speak here in the evening of, Keith, what day is it?
It's Monday, the 10th, August 10th.
We thought the Big Ten was going to cancel already. Their presidents met earlier today, and I mean that announcement could be coming out any minute now. But they have
hopefully
not
the minute
yet.
We stop recording this. Well, and it was. I mean, in some cases, some reporters had. I don't want to say they jumped the gun, but they had essentially the Detroit Free Press basically wrote the story saying we have sources, that have confirmed that 10 of 12 schools, minus I believe it was Iowa and Nebraska at that point, had said that they were done and an official announcement would be coming tomorrow. It does seem as though there was a bit of brakes put on that because some significant figures, both in the coaching community and obviously on the political side, said, just hold on a minute. So whether or not by the time you watch this or by the end of this week or by the time this season is supposed to start, whether that happens or not, it still remains to be seen.
Well, let's go out on a limb because we live close to and it seems like the decision is going to be made, but not yet in the time in which the decision has been made. Here on what day again, Keith?
It's Monday, August 10th.
It's the evening, too.
Great day to order your Sportish mug.
No, not a great day to order your Sportish mug because that apparatus has not yet been set up. So it is not a great day to order your Sportish mug. However, it is a great day to make some predictions about whether we're going to have college football at all this year. Keith, we'll let you go first. Do you think college football at any level is going to be played in 2020?
No, but can I preface that? So here's what I'm not surprised at, and this was something you always say, is that these decisions are driven almost exclusively by finance, right? It's money.
Yeah.
Right. Money in football, at least at the major, Power 5 conference level. And I think the AAC is kind of an interesting case study. You watch them be the last holdouts because they have so desperately wanted the limelight on them for so long. You notice you've heard nothing from them, right? And
nothing.
And I could see them saying, we'll play. Hey, Nebraska, you want to come play with us? I don't. And just think of the geography they reside in. There are a lot of states that probably a little bit more proactive in opening than some of the other conferences that might be considering closing. All that aside, UConn was kind of the first shoe to drop because that was the first, FBS school. Yep. That was, by all accounts, and perhaps I'm sounding a bit cynical. By all accounts, that was a almost exclusively economic decision. That was a school without a conference that looked around and said, by the way, we have no schedule left because every conference in the country had basically said we're going conference only. So as much as they like to talk about how, well, we just couldn't guarantee it was going to be safe, so we talked to our players, that was an economic decision. So they went first.
It was like when you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it to your party this weekend, and you were never invited. That's UConn canceling football.
And they might as well just add and be like, and that doesn't just stand for this year, but forevermore, because they've already because they already joined the Big East basketball conference. They basically don't have a real home for football anyway. They may as well just send everyone home for good. So which would do everyone probably a huge favor, particularly all the frustrated football fans in the state of Connecticut who have had to watch this. And UMass, you're next. So we're coming for you. The MAC, it was really the same situation. The MAC operates largely, its finances is very much, kind of a house of cards that operates largely on guarantee games early in the season. So, and this has been well documented for years, but these schools, whether it's Western Michigan or Eastern Michigan or any of the directional schools, Buffalo, they play 1, 2, or, perhaps 3 schools against Power 5 conferences. They could make upwards of $5 million, which is a significant amount of money to help fund athletic programs that, generally speaking, operate at a loss. So as conferences, once again, as the Big Ten and the SEC said, we're not going to play you guys this year, they really had nothing to fund an operation that was going to be more expensive than ever, where they also weren't getting any revenue off of gate attendance. They have very meager television arrangements anyway. They don't make a whole lot of money off that. So in essence, it was a fiscal decision. So up to this point, all we've seen are economic decisions. Now we're getting to the nitty gritty, because now you have, essentially 5 major conferences in the AAC that, for the most part, I think if they played, could still operate in the black. I think they could still make money. I mean, they're losing a lot. What do you? That's the big. So I think that's the big question. I don't think this is about anything else other than, can they make money?
I guess I don't know enough about how the conferences share television revenue to be able to accurately answer that question. But I do know that Penn State announced that they would not be having fans in their stadium, even if there was a season, and that would account for roughly $70 to $100 million loss. I would be a little surprised. Well, you figure they get 100,000 people in that stadium. I mean, even more, 110,000 people in that stadium 7-8 times a year. I'd be very surprised if the TV deal made up for that number.
No, but that must account. That seems like that's almost like that's economic impact, just in terms of what they.
But I mean, if you think about it, like, people are paying thousands of dollars a year just for the right to have a space to tailgate in. Like,
it's significant. Look, it is. That seems high, but it is significant dollars that they are losing by not having gate attendance. And the costs of running the season are much higher. The testing protocols, the travel protocols, even with fewer games, it's going to be a very expensive venture. The question really becomes, I think, in some regard, the how much they think they'll lose by not playing a season. And that's probably a conversation that includes all the ancillary costs that might, whether it's from donors, whether it's the ancillary costs of what that might do to the university. Because we talked about this off the air. When Alabama decides they're not playing football this year, I'm not so sure that Alabama is going to continue to decide that they're going to have in-person college this year. I mean, there was, and I don't know if we're being a little kind of facetious on this, but there was a strong argument that part of the reason these schools were planning on bringing back students at all was so that they could justify having a football program. It was very hard to have fully online school and then, but then bring back the football team. So, that's going to be a real, I don't know. But I don't think they're going to play, because I think as things get closer and closer, I don't think it's going to end. Here's what I will say. Here's my other prediction. I don't think we'll have our final decision by the time this show airs, though. I think we will still be in limbo, in chaotic limbo by that time.
I think you're right about that. I certainly do not think the entire fall will go away by the time that this show airs in 2 days' time from when we're talking about it right now as you're watching or listening to it. But at the end of the day, I agree. I do not think there's going to be fall sports in the NCAA. And I think that for 2 reasons. One, optically, it is a mess. I mean, this is a PR nightmare if you play through. And I think that's a big reason why the MAC ended up canceling. The MAC has a school, Northern Illinois, whose president is an infectious disease expert. And Northern Illinois basically said, look, we don't care what you guys decide. We're not going to play. And the MAC didn't like the optics of just that. Yeah. And now that an entire league is gone, and the majority of the FCS, and all of Division II, and all of Division III, if you come out with a strong statement, as Scott Frost did at Nebraska today, was like, we're going to play, and we don't care how it looks, you open yourself up to a level of scrutiny that I don't know many presidents and athletic directors or just people in general are comfortable taking or prepared to weather. I think the PR storm, if you go gung-ho to play after all of the people that have canceled, after all of the people that are probably still going to cancel, after all of the players who are probably going to opt out, and that may be 5%, maybe 10%, maybe 30%, maybe 60%, we have no idea. But after all the opt-outs, they're going to get far more headlines and far more ink than they probably deserve. I just think you're in a position where it's awfully difficult to defend why you're playing. And by the way, not just defending why you're playing Alabama football that makes tens of millions of dollars, also defending why you're playing, say, Cincinnati women's soccer. Not to pick on them, but to have football, you also have to have the rest of your fall sports. So I just think that's a position that you can't get out of. And
by the way, how insignificant do the other sports that play in fall feel right now? Because they're just waiting to hear the football decision. It's no one is waiting for cross country and soccer and all these other sports. They literally volleyball. They aren't even part of the conversation. They're like, well, football play. Well, you guys can play, but if football's not going to play, it's really no. Even though these sports in some cases are like cross country is very different than football. No one cares.
And the other reason is just simply the uncertainty of the whole virus situation. America clearly does not care and has no plan for how to mitigate this virus. None whatsoever, and none is coming. So it just creates, and you've heard this from athletic directors and school presidents that have gone on the record, but often anonymously. You've heard them essentially say, like, we don't know enough, so therefore we don't know how to put together a path forward. As these players have come back for minicamp, awful lot of them have tested positive. Yeah. We don't know if that means that they've gotten sick. We don't know if that means, they're suffering any sort of ill effects. But here's the thing. We don't know if they're suffering any ill effects. We don't know that if someone tests positive, doesn't get sick, if 10, 15 years down the line, they don't have health concerns. I also think it's a terrible mistake that a lot of people are making, that just because you are 21 years old and a high-level athlete, that you're not also in some sort of risk category, right? There's a lot of D1 athletes that have asthma. There's a lot of D1 athletes that have undiagnosed conditions. Yeah. Sure. And the season's an undue risk for them. How many is it? Is it 2 players? Is it 20 players? Is it 200 players? Is it 2,000 players? We don't know. There's too many unknowns. And when you sit down as the person who has to make the decision and the person who has the liability fall on your shoulders, I don't know how you can look at that picture and go, yeah, we're going to play, and we don't care how it looks. And we don't care what happens.
Yeah, they are. We've talked about this idea of there being no good answer, because there is no this. Yeah. Some of these decisions that are being delayed, they're not inherently always being delayed. And this is a conversation we've had with our as you know, our esoteric sports expert Jim Cotter, who has not yet graced the screen for Sportish yet, but will soon.
As long as he buys a mug.
But we had this conversation because he has a daughter who's going to college, and a lot of these decisions keep changing and they delay. It's not because they're inherently bad administrators. It's because there are no good decisions. Like, there are no good answers, right? Everywhere you turn, no matter what you do, it's a bad decision. It might be the best bad decision you can make, but canceling the football season might be the best decision they make. There's still a lot of negative impact that comes with that. And I will, as you kind of alluded to, this is an inherent kind of PR nightmare, because if everyone else and a lot of smart folks are saying, hey, this is a bad idea, and you go out and do it, you are now on the limb for everything that goes wrong, because you can't say, well, no one told me this is going to go down like that. And that's, I think, in some cases why when the Ivy Leagues go first, it's always a bad sign. So just like with basketball, certainly, we talked to Andy Knoll when the Ivy Leagues dropped out early on. It was hard to say, well, those guys, they don't know anything. Like, what does Harvard know about infectious diseases? Right?
Yeah, right. It is just, and I just did we're basically at 5 months since the sport shut down in the middle of March. Um, it is stunning to me that we are sitting here talking about this. I mean, I remember vividly that day when sports canceled and all the conference tournaments, basketball conference tournaments ended. Never, ever, 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 ever did I think that we would be talking about the potential of a lost football season. It is head scratching that we are sitting here talking about this. It's honestly, it's like infuriating that we're sitting here talking about this because there's been a lot of this type of trope going around social media and whatever, that the media, the people that cover college football, politicians that lean left, whatever, they want to see there be no college football. It's one of the most ludicrous things I've ever heard. I work very closely with a college football team who had its season canceled last week. I, at the same time, think that both sucks and is the right decision. And there's nothing I want more than to be able to have college football games to work in the fall, because I love doing it and it's a lot of fun and there's a lot of people that really like it, and I'm one of them. I'd also feel pretty strange if I was getting on an airplane to go to a college football game in Kentucky in 1 month's time. It just doesn't feel like the right thing to be doing. I'm pretty I'm not upset about it because I'm not walking around angry, but it is
you will be in October when you're what am I going to watch? You will be angry about it.
I mean, maybe, but I guess what I'm angry at is that the rest of the world has proven that we do not need to be in this position. And the fact that we are is maddening and frustrating. And I don't know, it's just, I guess, another quintessential American, American trait that we don't care. We seem to be the country that doesn't care.
Pulling that mug out just to...
I needed a sip of water.
Well, I would say, look, I agree. I mean, there is no defense of how poorly we've mangled this. I don't think certainly when you and I were talking early on when college basketball was canceling, and I was like, it's all over. And you were like, no, I think we may be jumping too soon. You were like, when you were like, I think we went too soon. We couldn't have imagined that this was going. Look, as a college administrator, I wasn't, when we sent everyone home in March, I wasn't like, well, we'll never see these kids again. This is an online university now. We're all University of Phoenix, right? I mean, that was, it seemed ludicrous, but there's two things. One is, look, none of us, that's not true, actually. People, there were a lot of doctors who knew this was coming in January, December, January, and February. So if people had listened to the doctors and had not, and look, not to get overly political, although we're about to talk about Mount Rushmore quite soon, but if the CDC had been given the bandwidth to do its job, they would have told you exactly what's going to happen, and they knew this was a pandemic, and people inside knew that, and that organization was not given the opportunity to kind of do their job, and so we could have been more prepared for this, and we could have said, this is coming, here's how we're going to deal with it. There's another side of it is there's really nothing like the American university athletic system anywhere else in the world where you have, I mean, there are club sports, but there's nothing like this thing where you have almost 1,000 NCAA schools. I mean, if you add up all the divisions, then you add up NAIA, right? Somewhere in that neighborhood.
I think so. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, in that neighborhood.
There's nothing like this anywhere else in the world where you basically have kind of mini professional sports franchises that cover upwards of 20 plus sports that travel all across the region and the country to play athletic contests. Yeah. So while not to give the U.S. any kind of, excuse here to say, well, it's not our fault. It is our fault. But I don't know that there was any way to effectively preserve college sports in the way that we know them, given the way the pandemic. I think we could have done a better job. We could have done regional competitions, but we couldn't have kept sports through this pandemic.
Oh, I disagree, actually. I think we could have kept sports through this pandemic because here as we sit on, again, what's the date, Keith?
It's August 10th, the evening of August 10th. And by the way, things could be happening while this show is going on. We could literally be talking about something that is patently not true. I mean, because we're shut off from the rest of the world.
As we sit here on August 10th, I think there's a world in which we could have been getting ready to play a regular fall college sports season, because it has become extremely apparent to me that we did less than the bare minimum to eradicate this virus from our society. The quote unquote quarantine and lockdown that we had back in April and May weren't. Ask anyone who lives in Italy if what we did was
that's a real lockdown. That was the real deal.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, you think back to the fact that we had people taking to the streets with guns to demand the reopening of hair salons in May. I remember vividly being part of a conversation with a business owner in the beginning of April who said, I know how bad, this is the beginning of April, who said, I know how bad it's going to look, but we got to think about how to reopen businesses. Like, we are the country that looks out for number one first. And I don't mean our country, I mean the individual. People
Yes.
look out for themselves and everyone else be damned. And, to get out of that mindset requires leadership. And we never had it.
The reason that happens though is because people know there's not a safety net. So people are talking about getting industry going because they feel like, look, there's no check coming from the government. No one's saving us.
Yep.
I'm not going to have health care. And so there are reasons why we operate in the way we do.
And I get that.
What is this? We are
there's
in the
no reason you
part of sport.
You can have that. Like, we could have had that. It's not, well, clearly everybody got a $1,200 check. There's no reason everybody couldn't have gotten 5 of them. And now I understand you can have arguments.
I didn't get a $1,200 check.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. I understand that there are larger arguments at play here, but that does not mean that in literally unprecedented circumstances in this generation that you cannot make unprecedented decisions to solve it. So if you're sitting here going, there's no way we could have possibly had college sports this fall. No, there are ways. We chose not to go that way.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah,
you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. And which I love, by the way. All of the people that didn't do the things that could have been done are now crying out for college sports to occur.
Sure.
And shockingly, all of those people are up for re-election. And boy, so now they're going to politicize the fact that there's no college football because, look, I mean, you don't have to be a political scientist. The attack ad writes itself. You air it on, say, Saturdays in September and October and say, don't you wish we're watching college football right now? Why aren't you? Here's why. So obviously now it's going to become a political ploy. And it's just such a ridiculous and awful situation.
You're just upset because you're not going to be able to call games, and now
you're going
to have to put all your time into Sportish. Maybe we'll have to do 2 episodes of Sportish in the fall, a Saturday episode.
Oh, I can't take another 48 minutes with you every week.
But of course we'll do the Saturday episode on like Wednesday.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, I am upset that I can't call. Like, calling games is one of my favorite things to do, and I'd like to be able to do it.
All right.
And I can't.
I feel like we've killed this topic. We have a lot. There's other stuff to talk about.
All right, good. Let's get angry about something else. Would you like to get angry about our president inquiring about getting himself added to Mount Rushmore, or the fact that the For the Fans robots are on demand, but we aren't? Because I'm willing to go off on either. Which of those 2 topics would you like to be mad about right now?
As much as I feel like the Mount Rushmore is a true affront to America, I think we're going to have to go with the robots because that really, really bothers me.
Yep, we are going to talk about that. But first, I mean, I just got to put this out there. I don't know 2 people, Keith, and I mean personally know 2 people that have larger egos than you and I.
No, this is pretty much the top of the pyramid, and 2 people who have less reason to have it too. Really unaccomplished.
Yeah. And like both of us looked at this request that the president made, this inquiry that the president made to see how he could get on Mount Rushmore. And this is as reported by the New York Times. Like, we looked at this and went, boy, that's narcissistic. Like, we're like, dial it down a bit. Like,
but on
we are people who ask for free stuff. We're like, could I maybe get one of those? Like, no, but I don't want to pay for it. Like, you just give me one. And we're like, whoa, that is off base.
Yep, but off base, but on brand. And let's be clear, you're never going to get something if you don't ask for it. So I think give him credit. He just wanted to see what would it take.
All right,
that's a great topic. But let's get into the thing that's really bothering us.
Yeah. So the For the Fans robots have a leg up on us. And I would like to say that this is something that happened after we took shots at them at our last episode. Again, quick recap. Yeah. For the Fans have mascots. They're robots. Those robots play like sporting competitions. Right. We don't know why, but they do. And oftentimes in the middle of a Sportish episode, that's the commercial break is like the little clip of the robot.
Because companies are so disinterested and financially backing this program that they have to fill it with animated robots for which no one makes any money. There's no profit being made off these robots, but they just have to somehow fill 3 minutes of airtime. So this is how we've gone.
Yeah. So we've been campaigning because our show airs Wednesday at midnight and ends at 1 a.m. Thursday. we've been campaigning. We've been like, hey, you should put our archives up on demand so people can watch them when they're awake. And that just it hasn't happened. It has not happened. And so I was scrolling through, what is available on demand. And Keith, what is available on demand is every one of the robot interludes of them playing poker, of them having an archery competition, whatever it may be. You can watch those anytime you like. On demand viewing. Sportish, you want Sportish? You got to stay awake until midnight on Wednesday. Robots, anytime. Robot archery, anytime. Sportish, a prescribed 1 hour a week, and that hour, midnight to 1 a.m. Wednesday to Thursday.
I've said this before. We do not want to pick a fight with those robots because For the Fans has made it very clear where their loyalties and their priorities lie. Right? They have put their resources towards making sure there is enough server space and web bandwidth to make sure. Like if you watch this show right now and you want to see this again, the only part you're going to see again are the robots. That's the only thing. That's the only part of the show you're going to be able to watch again. It's that.
You know what I now want to see happen? I mean, I don't want to see this happen, but I think it'd be hilarious if the robots mocked us.
Oh, of course.
The robots did a Sportish style show. If they were like bleep blorp. Why isn't there college football? And that is what they aired. And they aired that in the middle of our show, like in the middle of that college football discussion. I'm sure there was a commercial break, and they just mocked whatever like high-minded points we were trying to make by having cartoon robots make them, but in that stupid robot voice.
With the same background. One person wearing a pullover and one person wearing an always too tight t-shirt.
I mean, that would be like, I would tip my cap so hard.
The height of success for Sportish is that we may get into a fight. We may get a parody.
The robots drink from mugs with their robot faces on them. It's just oil inside instead of water. We made a terrible mistake here that we've given out the playbook for how the robots can further damage our egos. But gosh, I want to see it. Oh, I mean, it would just be.
I'm going to try to get a call with For the Fans management this week if they could take a break from the 7-on-7 tackle no pads football.
All right.
It's going great.
I got one more thing to be mad about. Can I get mad about one more thing before we end this program?
Bring it on.
I got one more thing to get mad about.
We got a few minutes.
We all have our roles to play on this show, and we don't really talk about our roles but we all clearly have them. Mike Wallace is our producer, and what does that mean? It means he takes the raw feed that we give him, he runs them through the skin. He's the reason we look good and we look professional.
Yeah. Right.
My role is I put the rundown together for the program. I handle all the social media. Keith's role is that he books the guests and he posts the podcasts, and he does the initial edit of the program.
Right.
All of that's correct, right? I feel like it's a pretty fair delineation of duties.
I tend to think that I pulled my disproportionate amount of the weight, but that's fine.
Of course you do. Can you try any harder naming our podcast episodes? The names of the audio version of the show are just do better. They're so bad.
What's wrong with that one?
Do better.
What did I write last week?
Varsity Blues. If you remember last week, we had a debate over the quality of the movie Varsity Blues. So Keith Strudler decided to name the episode Varsity Blues.
Right. Well, it's too literal for you?
I mean, I don't want to go back and read the other ones, but one was Talking College Sports.
We didn't talk, by the way, this is ridiculous. And you know what? You want to name them? Why don't you sit up at 3 a.m. and edit down the podcast? Because I always forget that I haven't edited yet until after this thing is aired.
You're a creative person. That's all I'm saying. You are a creative person. You're a funny person. There's no reason you can't blend those two things together and come up with something better than Sportish versus the Robot 2 episodes ago. Remember back on July 9th when we had body sensors and pickleball in the age of COVID-19? Because you can go back and listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever podcasts are served.
Is that what I named it? That was very, everyone knows exactly what to get.
By the way, Talking College Sports, that episode was preceded by Talking Youth Sports.
I was on a roll.
And the episode before that was entitled Making Brunch. And sadly that is one of our more creative titles.
Well, you know what? All right, so go ahead and name this episode, because I got a name for it. A giant fire hazard.
Okay. What?
I mean, what's unnecessary explosion, mouth vomit? I don't know.
Mouth vomit? You think what's going to get us clicks is a podcast entitled Mouth Vomit?
I mean, it's just not. By the way, I thought we were going to spend some time, we're almost out of time, reading Travelocity reviews of the hotels that the basketball players are staying at.
Well, we ran out of time. We spent
and
too
so
much time
that's
on the
your
mugs.
job too. Your job is to.
I didn't know
keep.
I didn't know
your
you were going
job
to
is
devise.
To keep track of the rundown.
I didn't know you were doing an entire charitable development plan on the mug. I thought the mug was going to be 3.5 minutes, and people got 13 minutes on this beautiful ceramic mug, soon to be available online at a location to be determined because we don't have a website. And proceeds will benefit COVID relief charities somewhere in the Northeast.
I like to close every business meeting with at least a review of our deliverables. It sounds like we both have some work to do. All right, I'll go first. It sounds like I'm now point person to come up with a whole new naming process, right? I'm gonna have to round table that a little bit and come up with a creative way. And I always used to decide whether I thought the guest we had on was famous enough to put them in the name. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you noticed that. Mm-hmm. Jack Ford may have gotten in there. So apologies to, by the way, now I just really
we'll just scratch off everyone who's named and make it into an episode title. They'll never come back.
So that's what my first deliverable. Second, obviously, figure out how we're going to get on demand, right? That's going to be my next deliverable.
No, that's third, one email. It can actually be done in one sentence. Can we be on demand?
I've asked. I've asked. All right. So that sounds like those are my two deliverables. What are your deliverables? Oh, and I've got to set up some kind of charitable website that,
Mug scale. I have to look into mug scale because right now these are awfully rare, but maybe they won't be quite so rare in the future. And Keith, I think we can say the exact same thing about this program. Right now, quite rare, but we hope in the future, maybe not quite so rare. It's all the time that we got for this episode of Sportish. Thanks for letting us get some things off our chest. This felt a little cathartic to me. I want to thank Mike Wallace, our producer, Keith Strudler. He's my co-host. My name's Geoff Brault. Audio versions available Thursday, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you want them. 5-star review. We'll take them, and we will see you next week. Thanks for coming along.
Thanks for listening to Sportish. See you next time.